Good afternoon. I'm Atsuko Jenks. I've met several of you probably through my consulting work as well as activities at GSV Labs. Also, many US-Japan related events. I have been here for a long time. Kenji mentioned 20 years, but that's sort of my professional life here. But I came here in 1983. You can sort of guess how old I could be. When business school was still over there in the old building, and now it looks like a resort. I kept close connections with GSB because it provides lots of interesting educational programs for alumni, as well as a board member now on Alumni Association. And I contribute as a pro bono consultant for Stanford Business School, ACT, which is basically helping Bay Area nonprofit organizations by providing consulting work for free of charge. So that's my avocation, by the way, helping nonprofit organizations in the Bay Area, as well as if I can do more in Japan, that would be great. But at least I work as a volunteer for US-Japan Council and some other organizations which connect Japan and the United States. So today, I'm going to talk about corporate and government-funded accelerator programs in Silicon Valley and beyond. I had to include beyond because there's one particular accelerator that I'm going to talk about, which is in Cincinnati, Ohio, funded by P&G. I have to use the clicker. Sorry. Here we go. A quick agenda. The first item is tell you a little bit about GSV Labs, where I am. It's in Redwood City, and I'm going to talk about what we do. And number two, I'm going to talk about some corporate accelerator programs in Silicon Valley and one in Cincinnati. And third item is foreign government-funded accelerator programs that I sort of got acquainted with through my activities at GSV Labs. And that does not include Japanese accelerator, by the way, and implications and key takeaways for Japan. Now, looking into corporate accelerators, I came across this article on TechCrunch. Corporate accelerators are an oxymoron. Okay, that's because, Danny says, corporations are by nature big and slow, and they are not very innovative. When they try to accelerate startup companies, they put all kinds of restrictions and limitations, and they try to take advantage of startup companies for their own benefit and not really with a pure goal, right? So are corporate and government-funded accelerators an oxymoron? Or are they viable options for Japanese corporations? That's my big question. And I included government-funded accelerators because I worked with some of the government-funded accelerators in Silicon Valley. So, okay, again, corporate accelerators and oxymoron. I would like to say no, because I have seen many great examples. Why am I interested in this topic? Great examples of effective corporate and government-funded accelerator programs are found in Silicon Valley and beyond. And this might be a good model for some of the Japanese companies who are trying to figure out what to do in Silicon Valley and how to work with Silicon Valley and how to harness Silicon Valley so that we can collaborate. And I also feel that there might be a cultural fit for Japanese corporations to go through this corporate funded and government-funded accelerator programs as opposed to traditional Silicon Valley approach of finding an amazing startup and invest in it and look for a huge exit. That's somewhat a little bit of a dissonance there in terms of Japanese corporations' activities and missions and Silicon Valley VC's objectives in investing in startup companies, particularly nowadays. First item. So what is GSV Labs? GSV Labs is an accelerator located in the heart of Silicon Valley, right in the middle of San Francisco and South Bay. And we have more than 180 startup companies residing or occupying space. And there are more than 500 members. So members do not necessarily there. They sometimes have just a remote membership. They have a membership from Budapest, and you can still be part of GSV Labs ecosystem. And there are more than 150 mentors involved in this accelerator. I got involved in GSV Labs as a mentor about 2.5 years ago. That was my first involvement with an accelerator. And we have more than 60 events per year. And one of them is, the biggest event is Pioneer Summit in the fall. And we have numerous startup pitch events, conferences, networking events. And we offer programs such as working space rental, startup acceleration programs, which are usually fixed-term, cohort-based acceleration programs, corporate training, which is a bulk of my activity for Japanese corporations, corporate innovation programs, new business development, acceleration programs, and seminars. So this little graph shows you how corporations and big organizations, individuals, and startups sort of work in the same space and create a mini Silicon Valley ecosystem. It works very well because we have corporations like 3M, Intel, JetBlue. They reside there and they have their own corporate innovation accelerator programs going on. Cisco is a big part of it. And then we have, as you saw, more than 180 startup companies renting spaces, starting from just one desk to sometimes 6 desks. So when a startup wants to talk to 3M for some reason, they can just walk over there and they can have a very casual conversation about business development or distribution. And individuals come in as consultants, accountants, lawyers. These people are all sort of involved in the accelerator program. Very sort of organic format. So what I do at GSV Labs is mostly for 3 categories of constituencies. The first is a startup. These are the mentors' activities. I help them with fundraising, new business development, corporate innovation program, no for startups, but I do that for corporations, and strategy implementation and business skill training. Mostly, I highlighted Japanese corporations with a gray, and that's bulk of my activities. And we do a lot of corporate training, business skill training, and new business development. So based on my activities, I'm always thinking, what is an effective model to support Japanese corporations? That's sort of my life work since I came here in 1983. And I still remember when I wrote the application to Stanford Business School, I actually used the word bridge. I would like to be the bridge between the two business communities. And it's still going on. And the bridge is still not there yet. So it takes a long time. Second item. Before we get into corporate accelerator programs, let's just do a quick review of a typical Silicon Valley accelerator program, such as Y Combinator, Alchemist, 500 Startups, Plug and Play, and StartX. They are usually fixed term, about 3 months, cohort-based. You apply for a particular cohort of a term, and they are privately funded by VCs and other investors. Mentorship programs are offered, and mentors include former entrepreneurs, angel investors, venture capitalists, corporate executives, and specialists, including lawyers, accountants. And they usually culminate in a public pitch event or demo day. That's very standard. And for example, at GSV Labs, we have this Pioneer Accelerator program, which is very similar to a very typical Silicon Valley Accelerator program, which lasts for 12 weeks. Week 1 is a boot camp. Week 2 to 10 is an in-depth sort of grilling of startups for about 10 weeks. And then in week 11 and 12, startups prepare for the pitch event. And week 1 boot camp includes a product market fit validation. And unfortunately, many companies at this point already feel, okay, we need a major pivot. This is not going to work. But it's good because they realize it very early on. And this is a very intensive time where they meet with tons of mentors. I'm one of them. And they go to Google Launchpad. They grill them on their UX design, UI design. And they go through a ton of questioning of themselves. Is this going to really work? And then some of them actually quit, and some of them leave, and some of them continue to stay for 12 weeks, and they try to get funding at the end of 12 weeks. Very intensive. Now, compared with that, I selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 corporate-funded accelerator programs, which are a little bit different. Basically, they fixed terms, cohort-based, all of that is very similar. But if you look into each one of them, they have some distinctive sort of characteristics and strengths, and maybe limitations. And that becomes kind of interesting. And there are a lot more. If I continue to list all these logos, there are so many corporate accelerators in the United States. And going back here, Samsung next is here. Intel is here. Intel Education Accelerator is actually at GSV Labs. BRANDERY, that's the Cincinnati-based PNG-backed accelerator program. AT&T Aspire is in San Francisco. Wells Fargo, I think it's based in San Francisco. Disney, Microsoft. Sprint, they're probably in Kansas City. Citrix is probably in San Diego, Southern California somewhere. So there are so many of them. And it's in Coca-Cola, the bridge, that started in Tel Aviv. So it's sort of in the United States, but global as well. So as I mentioned, those corporate funded accelerators are a little bit different in terms of mission. If you take the financial return and new technology discovery as the ultimate goal for traditional accelerators like Y Combinators, they want a big exit. These companies come to sort of the left-hand side. But some of other accelerators, corporate-funded accelerators, are more interested in social impact, talent development, a little bit longer term. And like AT&T Aspire, they even take nonprofit startups. So they are not necessarily looking for a big financial return by in the way of exits. So I sort of like that, mission. And as you can see, Pearson is also an education company, and Aspire focuses on education. They tend to have more social impact as a mission. And of course, they don't mind if there are big exits. They would like to have financial returns somewhat, but that's not the only thing that they pursue. So let's look at Samsung Next. Samsung Next is completely about new technology discovery and big exits. And they launched in 2013, and They focus on AR, blockchain, those very popular technologies. And they have a global network, not only in Silicon Valley, but they have the same accelerator program in New York, San Francisco, Israel, Korea, and Germany. Very powerful accelerator program. And they provide capital, expertise, resources, and connections. And they accelerate product development, investment, business development, and M&A. So they not only accelerate startup companies, but they also look at some of the a little bit larger companies for mergers and acquisitions. So they do regular other business deals as well. I thought this quote was kind of interesting. What did Samsung do when it was created more than 60 years ago? It sold noodles and sugar. I did not know that, did you? And nowadays, it's a technology company with a market value of billions of dollars. It was able to reinvent itself and transform itself multiple times, said Garg. He is a Samsung Next VC investor. And that movement has not ended. If Samsung is known by its hardware, the main focus of this Samsung now, Samsung Next, is the software. Until today, we have made 60 investments, 15 acquisitions, and 8 exits in only 3 years, something like that. So it's a hugely successful accelerator. Example number 2, BRANDERY in Cincinnati is funded by Procter & Gamble, and they were launched in 2010. So it's been there for a while. Not many people pay attention to Midwest, particularly until last year. Nobody paid attention to Midwest, but they have a very robust local economy around Procter & Gamble and their advertising business, and so they believe in Midwest. They serve the Midwest, and they are very proud to be Midwestern. So their focus is not necessarily the coolest, newest technology, but what is P&G known for? Marketing and consumer marketing. So they do training and startup acceleration, particularly in the area of branding, and marketing, and design, product design. But because Procter & Gamble is a global company, they are based in Cincinnati, but their network is global. And once you are accelerated by Procter & Gamble's BRANDERY, and you have a great product design and the brand and marketing, you are on your way to success. So this is an interesting approach to acceleration, not only just focused on the technology, the coolest technology, but the marketing aspect. So Procter & Gamble will provide $50,000 as seed money, and they also provide housing. How nice is that? That's something that we need in Silicon Valley, especially. And they provide expertise and connections. So they have a little, like a dormitory for startup companies. They all live together there, and they get the, all day being trained by Procter & Gamble selected mentors and experts, and they exchange ideas, help each other. It sounds like a fun place to be. And they end with a P&G pitch day. They have agency pitch day. Those are advertising agency pitch day. And they also have city blitzes, which is not in Cincinnati, but they go to cities like New York, Chicago, and San Francisco to hit the market. Now, if you remember the arrow all the way to the right, AT&T Aspire really focuses on social innovation and social impact. They set aside $350 million when they set up this accelerator in 2015. And they help education technology companies, social entrepreneurs, and including nonprofits. And what they want to do is to help education technology companies in student learning improvement and career success. So their acceleration program also includes like very critical job skills like coding or data analysis. So they are really focused on developing the next generation of labor force, which needs to understand technology. So AT&T, as I mentioned at the beginning, they set aside $350 million for this program, and they give you $100,000. That's nice, right? If you have a great idea for education technology company, apply. Aspire AT&T there in San Francisco. And they will give you $25,000 for expense stipend. And the great thing is that you don't have to live in San Francisco. You can be a remote participant in this program. So they try to make it easy for you. And I saw, you have to apply and you have to get selected. But I saw participants from Oakland, from New York. There are lots of companies, startup companies applying for this program from everywhere. And they also support you in major conference participation, which is like ISTE. If you are an education person, you would know. And GSV Labs ASU. That's a huge event, by the way. We had speakers like Bill Gates in the past. Big names come to that annual conference on education. The third item, foreign government-funded accelerator programs that I got to know in Silicon Valley. So those are the companies that I worked with, countries that I worked with at GSV Labs. There are companies from Mexico and Brazil. They send 30 to 40 startup companies every year. They started just 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, maybe. Yeah, and the duration of the program is 12 weeks. So it's very similar to the very typical Silicon Valley accelerator program. And Malaysia, in Malaysia's case, this is very similar to what Japanese government organizations are doing, like NEDO, sending like a cohort of 10 startup companies for 1 week, that kind of program. And I have seen Chinese startups, Korean startups, and Singaporean startups all go through some sort of acceleration programs at GSV Labs. And I think the same thing is happening at probably Plug and Play. There are lots of foreign startups going through Silicon Valley programs. And they are usually funded by the government as well as some sort of corporate funders backing the program. Let's look at the first one, Mexico and Brazil. In between the startup companies in Mexico and Brazil and Silicon Valley, there's a corporation and government funding working together, and they are calling themselves as ecosystem connector. I kind of like that word. We need an ecosystem connector. If there's an ecosystem in Tokyo and Silicon Valley, we need to connect them. So they are functioning as an ecosystem connector. So they sent 29 startups in 2016, and this year they are sending about 40 startups, and they're planning, I think, opening a local center in Mexico next year. Malaysia's case. In Malaysia's case, it's not necessarily just the startups. The group that I met with as a mentor had a pretty sizable company in the same group. And I thought that was actually a great idea. We tend to think, okay, this program is for startups. This program is for big corporations. But actually, they need to be able to work together, and they make good connections. So this group, when they came to GSV Labs, I really liked interacting with a large corporation and small startup companies by talking to them separately. And then later, I said, maybe you should talk to each other. Your product can be sold by the distribution that this big company has. So that kind of interaction doesn't happen easily unless it's a mixed group of people coming out from the country and visiting Silicon Valley. Somehow this Silicon Valley's free feeling make them communicate with each other more freely and easily. So Malaysian government has a government agency called MDEC, Malaysian Digital Economy Corporation. And they have a program called GAIN, Global Acceleration and Innovation Network. And they work with SMEs as well as startups. And their program actually starts in education. And I was very impressed by the fact that they start early, even like middle school, high school, and definitely college students, to continue to support them so that they can become global leaders. And I asked the director of this program, so all of the people who came here from Malaysia, your English is superb and very sort of effective in communication. How did you do that? And he said, we start early. We start really early because Malaysia needs to be global. Our economy is not big enough to be self-sustaining. And he contrasted Malaysia with Indonesia. And he said Indonesia is huge, so they can be just on their own and they can still grow nicely. But Malaysia has to be global. That was his explanation. The next one, Nordic Innovation House. They have 5 countries coming together to be in Palo Alto, nice location, right by downtown. And they decided to do it that way because it's very costly to be in Silicon Valley as a single country. And they have 180 startups from 5 countries as members. And they have 2 distinctive programs. One is for 4 weeks. That's a real boot camp type of acceleration program called TINK. And REACH is for more research-oriented companies. So research-oriented companies, which include some academic organizations who would like to be here for extended period of time, probably like 6 to 9 months. Now, German Accelerator is within GSV Labs. They are renting a space in GSV Labs. They used to be in Palo Alto, and they have their own group of usually 6 companies in that GSV Labs office, and they go through 3 to 9 months of programs, so much longer term. And they are government funded, about 90%, and 10% comes from corporations such as Siemens and Deutsche Bank and Deloitte Germany. So I have a little video here to show you because seeing is believing. So let's listen to what they say.
I'm Julian Schulz. I manage the operations for German Accelerator Silicon Valley. We have accelerated over 100 companies over the past 6 years. Currently have around 6 startups per quarter. For us, the most important thing that we want to teach our startups is the mentality of Silicon Valley that they can then bring to Germany and that helps them succeed out here and there. So the learnings that the companies can have out here are not necessarily about capital that can be raised or the technology that can be seen out here, but more about how to interact with your customer, how to do your marketing, and how to do your sales.
One of them is Change, an Accelerator program that lasts for 4 weeks. We also organize a program for Nordic health tech companies.
So I was following the government expansion program to bring us here.
How did you like that program?
Now the program is an eye-opener to let us know more things, learn more things, and how things work in Silicon Valley. So MTech is very helpful in connecting us with the experts here, potential investors, mentors, and some venture capitalists here. So we got to connect with. Well, I would say speed up doing things is rather quick here compared to Malaysia, where I have to go through the different steps. It's very different here where everybody talks to everybody. Deal can be done very quickly. Well, the government follow up on our progress. We have to get the full OKR, key achievements that we have to achieve. They will follow up month by month.
For how long?
I think a couple of months. Yeah, there's a short-term goal and a goal that we need to achieve. The government will try to keep track of what we achieve during this period of time throughout this program.
My name is Wang Su Liu, and I'm the co-founder of Happiness Inc. We are a Mexican-American startup. We are working with virtual reality to alleviate stress and anxiety. We're now in enterprise, so we're trying to help companies with this stress problem they have. We came here about a year ago, October 2016, join an acceleration program. And the reason we came as a Mexican investor slash company decided to bet on Mexican startups, and they brought 10 Mexican startups. We went through an acceleration program from October to December, and we decided to stay because we got to know the ecosystem here and how beneficial it could be for our company. So we talked to our investor, and we decided that this should be the best move for us. When we first came here, we didn't know what to expect. It was everything new for us. But little by little, we got to know Silicon Valley. We started to go to different meetups and started to meet a lot of people. Also, we met a lot of people in our own industry. So we felt that being here was very beneficial for us. And now, we started from Silicon Valley. We have 7 people in our team. Most of them are in Mexico, 6 of them. Myself, I live in Silicon Valley, and I do mostly development, business development, and marketing and PR. Also, I'm doing a lot of partnerships with strategic companies here in the Valley, and most of my colleagues are in Mexico. We have 3 developers, 2 neuroscientists in the team working with research with virtual reality in corporate spaces, and our CEO, Rodrigo, who oversees the production of the entire platform, our research, and also sales in Mexico and Latin America. So thanks to our research done on corporate environments, we were able to present at the third annual Psychiatry and Behavioral Health Innovation about 2 months ago.
just so happens Wansui is here in the back. Congratulations of your job, well done. So, and just as you can see, it's an amazing experience for these startups to come here, and they are supported by Mexican corporations as well as a little bit of government support. And to go through that, not just a few companies, but Mexico, I'm very impressed that they sent nearly 30 companies last year. And then this year, they are ramping up to 40 companies. And that has an effect. You know, he's here and being very successful, but struggling at the same time. That learning experience and the working experience with the back home team, that is a huge learning experience from my point of view. And he said when he came here, it was a little bit of a struggle. That's sort of an understatement, right? It was a huge surprise for you, and everything was new. And I was lucky to be your mentor. And when we started talking, there was no path to success really. And it was just two of them coming from Mexico. They struggled through the program, and they were determined to stay here, and now they have big corporation as customers. I think that's an amazing journey for them in only 1 year. So implications, key takeaways. So unlike the guy who said corporate accelerator programs and government-funded programs could be oxymoron, I feel that corporate and government-funded accelerators have great benefits. They provide wider range of benefits, not just money, but housing sometimes, and distribution network that they have. And they cater to a broader range of beneficiaries, not just the startup companies. Just like Malaysia's case, they cater to a little bit bigger companies, and they are already established. One of the companies that I talked to from the Malaysian group was about $10 million in sales already. They were already profitable, but they came here with a cohort of startup companies to see how things work in Silicon Valley. And so they cater to a little bit more flexible in terms of who they help, because they are not just looking for a financial return from exits, because they are supported by the government and corporations who want to build business as opposed to exit from the business. That's not their goal. They want to continue to build, which is something to say about Silicon Valley mentality a little bit, because on one hand, those huge exits are great, but on the other hand, people immediately ask, okay, how fast do you scale? What's the exit scenario? One company that I talked to the other day, Japanese corporation, he's a board member of a multi-billion-dollar company. He goes, why do they want to exit? It was a huge question for him. Don't they want to continue to build? I said, you are right, totally right. Exit should not be the only mantra for startup companies or Silicon Valley companies. That's my belief, that's my conviction. And when Toyota came here from Japan many years ago, did they come here to invest in startup companies to exit? No, they wanted to build. And I think the same thing is true for a lot of Japanese corporations and multinational corporations. They want to build business. They don't want to be obsolete. Therefore, they are eager to take in new technologies, but they are not necessarily looking for exits. So there's a very clear difference between the exit mentality and the building mentality. And also, to push it further, they also have find value in non-financial missions, like social impact. Not many people talk about the dark side of Silicon Valley, but there are enormous problems in Silicon Valley because of the inequality, access to wealth. If you look at the school system, if you look at private school versus public schools in wealthy area, versus not wealthy area, it's a huge social problem. So government-funded and corporate-funded accelerators with good CSR mission, I think they are very viable and they are critical to advance the society, not just for financial return, but really advance the society. They also offer flexibility in program formats, like AT&T's Aspire. They don't say you have to be here. They will try to accommodate, because all these startup companies are everywhere. And corporate and government-funded accelerators add value to the local and home country economy and society. That's also very important. Like Cincinnati's BRANDERY. They try to vitalize or continue to vitalize local economy around Cincinnati and Midwest. That's very important. So I think this model is very viable, reasonable, effective, and even desirable in terms of long-term benefit for the society. Okay, let's look at the summarize. VC-backed accelerators, there's nothing wrong with them. They are extremely successful because of their push in financial return and quick scalability and all of that. Innovation happens. I am a firm believer of those incredible VC-backed accelerators. Y Combinator's, Alchemist, they are amazing accelerator programs. But they are really focused on financial returns and exits because they have to, because they have investors that they have to return their profits to pension funds, all these fund managers. They have to do that. So that is extremely important. And new technology and business development is also important. Do they really care about social impact? Probably not. Now, Samsung, AT&T, Aspire, these corporate-funded accelerators, they have their own niche and interest, which is fine. And because they continue to support within that corporate mission, those startup companies that fit their missions and goals. Now, those government-funded accelerator programs, they would like to have some financial returns. That's nice. It's nice to have. But as Julian Schulz from German Accelerator said, he said, the best learning for these startup companies is about how to do business here, market access. And he said, it's not even technology, actually, because Germany is pretty strong in technology. And R&D is cheaper there. Off the record, he said, it's good to look at some technologies here, but we can do R&D back in Germany. But they all said backcountry economy and society is very important. Social impact is very important. So that sort of goes very well with the Japanese corporations' mentalities, I feel, because a lot of Japanese corporations are interested in, growth, steady growth, keep the employment of their employees, and continue to have a nice society. So those two models especially are very interesting to me because I think we can sort of mimic this model. And some programs, as I mentioned, like NEDO is doing some of that, but we could probably do more. And what I see day to day in dealing with Japanese companies and working with Japanese companies is there's a tremendous unmet needs and growing needs of Japanese corporations. They want to do corporate innovation, they want to do new business development, they want to discover new technologies, they want to discover creative ideas in Silicon Valley, they want to do talent development, global leaders, they want to have stronger and deeper network in Silicon Valley. They all say that. How can we do it? Could they be achieved in an accelerator created specifically to Japanese corporations? Maybe. I kind of think that that's a good solution, one of the good solutions. And other solutions, like Panasonic's example, they have a big CVC, they're investing in Silicon Valley. If you have $100 million to set aside and do that, that's great. That helps. They are all doing this. Perfect. And Komatsu, of course, they have the financial strength and they have great talents. They can do that. Perfect. But there's so many other Japanese companies who cannot say, okay, we're going to put $100 million in CVC in Silicon Valley. There are a lot of companies who are already billion-dollar level, but they are not ready to say, we're going to do $100 million CVC here. Because that's a big jump, huge jump. So for them to do something extra, some sort of an accelerator program might be helpful. So this is a little bit of a selling pitch of my program. But I started a pilot program with a couple of companies, and we do a corporate innovation program or new business development program, anywhere between 4 weeks to 12 weeks at this point. And I got some nice response, and there's one company here, NGK, thank you for coming to my, or participating in my program. And the intent is to try some sort of an accelerator program for Japanese corporations and see how it goes. And one by one company and the next company, I'm working with the next 2 companies at the same time and try to expand this program somehow to help Japanese companies. So anyway, so that's the end of my presentation. And since this is the last event of the year, Happy New Year. And, and Kenji, thank you very much for having me.
You are, and then ask Atsuko questions. That would be great.
It's on. Thank you very much for the presentation. And so may I ask rather nasty questions? I have been engaged with the Sprint Accelerator as because I'm Yoshi SoftBank because Sprint is our associate companies. But I have never seen successful companies. It's like a festival by tech stars, like 500 stars as well, Y Combinator as well. That means if internet and mobile worked well, let's say accelerator programs work well as well. But in IoT, AI, robotics, it's going to be how to combine with big corporations, with big corporations. It's not incubation. It's a business matching to academic technology to put together enterprise. Do you have any good example how to collaborate with big enterprise and startups through accelerator program?
Well, I think like Samsung Next corporate, is my work, okay. So that corporate accelerator model could work for you because you have the financial strength to put together whatever the amount of money that you need to put together, and then go through the application process. So startups, they need to present to you. And like Y Combinator, they get what, 2,000 applications or something huge. So if you said, okay, we have SoftBank such and such accelerator, we are going to accept applications for a summer program, you will get inundated with applications. Then you can pick and choose the best ones. So if you go through that process, I think the success rate will probably go up a bit. But I have to tell you that even Y Combinator, their success rate is not as great now as it used to be. Because there are so many startup companies. They are all over the place. And a lot of companies are not so great, just a little idea, right? So if you really want to have your kind of company, I would say create a SoftBank accelerator on your own like Samsung is doing or AT&T is doing with your corporate mission and focus of the vertical that you focus on the selected company and focus on the vertical that you want to pursue, robotics or AI or whatever. Then I think a success rate will go up. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And as a mentor, I put my soul into it. It's hard for the startup companies, but I can't sleep sometimes. I think about what are they doing? They're going to run out of money next month. It's time consuming. Exactly. It's very emotional because I see entrepreneurs' faces in my dream. Yes.
Hi, my name is James Hoover. I'm a consultant with Accenture, and my team's working with the Tokyo government on a foreign development program where we're helping foreign companies expand into Japan. And recently, the government launched an accelerator program in Tokyo where Japanese corporates are mentoring foreign companies. And I was wondering if you have advice for governments looking to build connections, stronger ties to the Valley, and if you've seen these types of programs where U.S. companies go abroad into accelerator programs be successful.
Yes, this is Tokyo government. So they don't work with Ministry of Trade and JETRO and NATO and these. Okay, but Tokyo government. How big is the budget? Can you tell?
I can't tell specifically, but
Right. Well, I mean, they can. Do they know how to do acceleration, so to speak? Do
they have a few corporate partners who, Japanese corporations working with them to help advise on the acceleration part of it.
All right. So corporate executives from big Japanese corporations, they're good, they are nice, but they are not necessarily good at grilling startups on nitty-gritty things. There's an example in Osaka Innovation Hub. They're a great organization, and they asked some Osaka-based big corporation executives to become mentors. But they had been like a general manager of a big division in Itochu. Do you think that he will just roll up the sleeves and, okay, let's look at your business plan? They don't do that. I think what you need is a real hands-on person who will work on your business plan and ready to sit down and work on it. And that's different from, okay, if you come to Japan, you should do business this way. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to look at the product, look at the competitors, and you have to work on it hands-on. So whether you can have those kinds of mentors who are willing to do that, that's a key success factor, I think, right there. People with passion to help startup companies. So Japanese top executives may not be the best person, group of people to do that. Names are great, but
Maybe Tokyo Metropolitan Government needs to join up and have a pilot program in yours. So, other questions? Okay, well, if you'd like all your questions to be off the record, then you can find Atsuko-san afterward. Please join us in thanking Atsuko, and a happy New Year to you.
Thank you very much.